My spouse had seen fit to lavish a fortune upon his paramour, a handbag worth more than some make in a year, while deigning to present me with some thoughtless trinket, as if my worth could be measured in spare change without a moment's hesitation. I placed the divorce papers before him that very evening. He indulged in his indiscretions with abandon. Come morning, a call shattered the quiet of my office. The voice on the line was clinical, detached. Are you the next of kin for Andrew Miller? He has suffered a stroke, partial paralysis. We require a family member's consent to proceed. Please come at once. I stood frozen. Only hours ago, he had scrawled his name beside mine on the document that severed our lives, and now, retribution had arrived with swift, cruel precision. When I reached his bedside, Andrew lay broken, mouth slack, one eye sagging toward a future he would no longer recognize. Emily, clad in rumpled sleepwear, wept softly beside him. A nurse gently nudged her aside. Miss, please step away. Mr. Miller's wife must be briefed on his condition. The word wife hung in the air like a verdict. Emily flushed and retreated. The doctor turned to me, inquiring after Andrew's health history. His medications. He has hypertension, I replied, my voice steady. Coronary disease. As for whether he's been adhering to his prescriptions lately, I couldn't say. The truth, like the man lying before us, was now only half remembered. Then I glanced at Emily and added, why don't you ask her? I don't know a thing. Emily quickly shook her head. Andrew never told me any of that. Dr. Lee, the attending physician, gave me a helpless look. Right now, there are 2 treatment options. I cut him off. You don't need to explain to me. Just choose the cheapest one as long as it won't kill him. It's fine. At first, I had wanted to say we should give up on treatment altogether, but when I looked at Andrew's distorted face and those eyes desperate to live, I suddenly decided I wanted him alive. I wasn't going to divorce him anymore. I wanted him in a wheelchair to sit and watch with his own eyes how he and Emily would destroy each other. Emily jumped up in protest. No, he has to use the best medicine, the best treatment plan. I sneered and turned back. Oh, miss, are you volunteering to pay for it? After all, he already switched the company's legal ownership to you. I'll pay. I'll pay, Emily said tearfully, throwing herself onto Andrew. As long as he can get better. A nurse pulled up the billing screen. Then please settle the current charges first, 100,000, and also deposit an additional amount so we're ready if he needs to be transferred to the ICU at any time. Clenching her teeth, Emily pulled out her phone and paid the bill. I'll figure out the deposit tomorrow. Inside, I sneered. If she can still pull another cent out of the company tomorrow, then I'll admit defeat. The next morning, Emily stormed into my office, furious, pointing at me. You're so vicious. You must have reported our company for tax evasion. The company's been shut down. How am I supposed to save Andrew? I tapped my desk calmly. Yes, I reported it. If you've got a problem, call the police. I am gonna discharge Andrew. Good dogs don't block the way. I picked up my bag and walked out. Emily stomped behind me. Drew hasn't recovered yet. How can you discharge him? Soon as I finished the discharge papers, Emily came storming into the ward with Andrew's parents. She pointed at me and shouted to them, look at how cruel this woman is. Andrew could keep getting treatment and recover, but she's discharging him already without a word. My mother-in-law swung a slap at me. I dodged and she missed, stumbling forward. My father-in-law caught her, then put his hands on his hips and started cursing me. I slapped him back. He hadn't expected me to hit him, and he froze, covering his face. I sneered, why don't you ask Molly how Andrew ended up having a stroke? Ever since the 2 of them started fooling around, Andrew hasn't taken a single dose of his blood pressure medication. The doctor said his stroke was caused by overexcitement. And why was he overexcited? Emily's face turned scarlet with shame, her eyes burning with fury. It's because you're old and worn out. You couldn't keep your husband, so don't blame anyone else. I let out a cold laugh. Oh, so you're admitting you're the mistress we read truly in love? Emily shrieked. But my mother-in-law didn't care about so-called true love. She slapped Emily hard across the face. You slutty fox. This is all your fault. Emily stumbled back, clutching her stomach. I'm carrying Andrew's child. You can't hit me. I watched the scene and thought to myself that the timing was just about right. I pulled open the door to Theward and said to the people outside, thank you all for coming to visit Professor Miller. Please come in since everyone's here. The little show I arranged can finally begin today. I'm going to make sure this cheating couple I subtly disgraced. Outside the door were rows of reporters with their cameras, along with a few student representatives carrying flowers. Yesterday, the university administration had already notified me that today people would come to interview and visit Andrew. After all, he was still a somewhat notable graduate advisor. The moment the ward door opened, the room fell into complete silence. I leaned over Andrew and said softly, Andrew, look, your university leaders value you so much they sent students to visit you and even invited reporters to document our so-called Dundeeing love story. Andrew trembled all over, his lips quivering as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. I added, You don't need to thank me. We went from campus to the wedding aisle together. This is simply what I should do, Emily, and my in-laws stared at me in shock, their mouths hanging open. One of the students was so startled that the flowers slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. Only Zhao Yiming, a reporter from the City Evening News, had eyes that lit up with excitement. I smiled at him and nodded. Reporter Zhao, please just write the truth. Zhao Yiming was famous at the paper for being hard-hitting. Inviting him here today had required a favor from someone higher up. He gave me a small nod, then immediately began his interview with Emily. Miss, when exactly did you and Professor Miller become involved? I heard the Millers were your benefactors. Doesn't this count as betraying their kindness? And when you say you re-pregnant with Professor Miller's child, isn't that really just about securing a share of the Miller family's zest? One question after another hit Emily like blows. She was left dazed, her face drained of all color. Half an hour later, I pushed Andrew's wheelchair out of the ward, speaking to him in a gentle voice, and headed straight to the company. I wheeled him around to reassure the employees, telling them that the company, though now seized for auction, would be taken over by me. They should continue their work with confidence. Jen from finance and members of the technical team grew emotional. Lisa, it's such a relief you've returned. I smiled and nodded, then pushed Andrew straight into the president's office. After shutting the door, I parked his wheelchair off to the side, sat myself behind the executive desk and told him cheerfully, when I left the finance department, I took the company's cash flow with me. Now I can use it to buy the company back. I've always led the R&D department myself, while you only ever chased women and fool around. So really, this chair is better suited to me. Andrew's hand trembled as he weakly lifted one finger toward me. I leaned close and said in a soft, almost tender tone, don't worry. Your company will be mine. You and Emily will lose everything. All the pain you inflicted on me, I'll repay double. 2 days later, I went to the university to process my resignation. The dean pulled me into his office looking troubled. Lisa, can you issue a statement? Just say Andrew and Emily's affair was a misunderstanding. This scandal is hurting the school's reputation. She smiled and refused. The dean immediately called Emily into the office, cursed her out, ordered her to apologize to me, and handed her a resignation form to sign. He told her to leave on her own. Emily shot me a sidelong glance and whispered smugly, I'm pregnant now. The school can't fire me. So the next day, I summoned her parents from the countryside. Seeing their weary, calculating faces, I smiled and told them, your daughter has hooked a rich man and is carrying his child. She is planning to abandon you both and go abroad. Then I reminded them, Emily shows up at the campus cafeteria entrance every noon. The following day, I wheeled Andrew over to the cafeteria to watch the scene unfold. Two shabby, raggedly dressed elders appeared, one clutching Emily and crying, the other sitting on the ground wailing. The one on the ground was her mother, who sobbed and complained while passers-by snapped photos. Heartless girl. You've latched onto some wealthy man, yet you won't even look after your own parents either. Get rid of the baby or pay $1 million as a bride price. After all, even a village girl without an education can bring in $200,000 in dowry, and you, a college student, let a man sleep with you for nothing. Emily stood among the crowd, her lips trembling, her face pale as paper. It was dismissal time and the campus was crowded and lively. Someone recognized her. She's shameless. She even dares to show up at school. What kind of parents raise a daughter like that? A woman like her isn't fit to be our advisor. We should all unite to boycott her. The crowd buzzed with angry voices. Andrew made guttural sounds from his mouth. As if he wanted to speak. I crouched beside him and whispered, Andrew, look, your beloved's parents are here and you can't even go greet them. What a pity. Emily, resourceful as always, pulled out her phone and made a call. Before long, Andrew's parents rushed over, coaxed and dragged her parents away and smoothed over the commotion. I leaned in toward Andrew and said softly, Emily really is a better fit for your family. Life moment she got pregnant, your parents treated her like a treasure. Unlike me, when I was pregnant and lost the baby, all I got from them were cold stares. They even pressured me to die during my confinement. Old colleagues came by to greet me with relief written all over their faces. They said that Vixen is finally gone for good. Lisa, you really are kind-hearted, still taking care of Andrew. I gave a faint smile. Of course, I'll take good care of him. I want him to watch with his own eyes as every sin he's committed is repaid one by one. Back then, I held off on pregnancy so I could focus on helping Andrew build his career. I was working full-time and at the same time managing his fledgling company. Later, when I finally conceived, his whole family conspired to push Emily into my place. They even tried to orchestrate my miscarriage. I remember lying there in despair, bleeding, watching them all walk away one by one. Not a single person was willing to call an ambulance to save my child. That was a life that was their family's own blood. Unconsciously, I touched my stomach. My child, watch from heaven. Your mother will never spare anyone who hurt you. Being forced out of my job was nothing. The real show had only just begun. I would make sure every last one of them wished they were dead after taking over the company entirely. I hosted a banquet. I personally wheeled Andrew onto the stage, took the microphone and said, "Thank you all for your trust. This company was founded by Andrew and me together. Now that his health requires care, I will protect this empire for him and lead us toward even greater achievements." Flashes from cameras landed squarely on Andrew. His facial muscles twitched and suddenly a string of drool ran down his chin. The scene froze right there. I spent a fortunito pushed the story onto the trending lists, and the next day the media was flooded with reports about the devoted female entrepreneur who stayed loyal to her gravely ill husband, never forgetting her original vows. The company's stock even surged because of it. Later in my office, I showed Andrew the headlines. "See, Andrew, your reputation is ruined. There's no chance of a comeback. Luckily, you can still earn me a bit of sympathy. Otherwise, you'd be nothing but a waste of food." Just then, my secretary called to say Emily was making a scene at the company entrance. Since she was pregnant, security didn't dare lay hands on her. I told Aunt Wong to push Andrew into a side room, then allowed Emily in. The moment she entered, she dropped to her knees in front of me crying, "Lisa, please save me." "No, I was wrong. I went to the hospital today and the doctor said my body can't handle an abortion, but I've now been forced to stop working at the university. How am I supposed to raise this child?" Her words actually made me laugh. "Emily, do you think I'm some saint that I'd take care of my husband's mistress and her child?" she sobbed. "Lisa, I know you can't have children. I'll give birth to this baby and hand it over to you, okay? I'll never see him again as long as you give me some money." "Impossible. Go to your future in-laws," I said coldly. Emily's expression twisted with hatred. "Don't bother those two old miserly wretches. When it comes to money they claim they have none. They want me to give them a grandson without spending a single cent." "Lisa, just cut off Andrew's medication, lock him at home, and give him enough to eat. The money you save will be more than enough to raise this child. The doctor already told me it's a boy." I couldn't help but wonder how could Andrew's parents be so willing to take Emily in. So it turned out they had confirmed she was carrying a boy. In a way what she said made sense, but I deliberately pressed her. "Weren't you two supposed to be in love? How could you be so ruthless to your precious Professor Miller?" Emily gritted her teeth. "Love with him? He's just an old man. He must have been blind in the first place." "Lisa, just think of this as me being your surrogate. You can have a child without pain or troubling. It'll only cost you a little money." "What a deal." I tapped the desk slowly. "And it's not impossible, but I haven't let go of the anger in my chest yet, and Andrew's already trying to steal from me. If you help me do one thing, then I'll consider it anything." "Lisa, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it," Emily said quickly, nodding hard. "Really?" I looked at her and smiled brilliantly. "What if I told you to accuse Andrew of forcing you into a relationship?" Emily stared at me dumbfounded. "What? Can't bear to do it? Then forget it. Get out." She clenched her jaw. "Fine. I'll do it." I turned on the spare computer at the side. Emily hurriedly drafted a statement, then printed it out and read it aloud to me. Nodded with satisfaction and pulled open the small door to the side room. Andrew sat there in his wheelchair, his face so red it looked like blood would drip from it. I instructed Aunt Wong to give him his blood pressure medicine, but suddenly Andrew found a burst of strength. He knocked Aunt Wong's hand away, half pulled himself up from the wheelchair. His expression twisted, his eyes fixed on Emily, making a chilling sound from his throat. Emily was startled, screamed and bolted from the office, but not before snatching the statement she had written. Andrew glared at her, retreating back before collapsing back into his chair, gasping heavily with more breath leaving than entering. I smiled at him and asked, "Well, Andrew, how does it feel to be betrayed by your little lover?" His face turned ashen, the light in his eyes snuffing out completely. Emily in the end was never reliable, but instead of hearing back that she had filed any accusation, I was blocked in the lobby the next evening by my in-law. Someone was handing out leaflets, the other crying loudly, claiming that I, a so-called entrepreneur, refused to support my aging in-laws, had seized their son's assets and was deliberately cutting off the Miller bloodline. Behind them were several people filming on their phones' live streaming machine. This was not something the in-laws could have planned on their own. This clearly had Emily's fingerprints all over it. I grabbed a small influencer's phone out of their hand, turned it toward myself and said into the live stream, "Regarding supporting my in-laws, I have transfer records showing I've paid them monthly living expense after their son cheated on me and fell ill. He stayed loyal, held up the entire company alone and provided stable jobs for hundreds of employees. I've done right by my family and by society. If anyone dares to spread malicious rumors that harm my reputation or the company's, I will hold them accountable to the very end." At that moment, our PR assistant Chankian also pulled out her phone to stream live. "This is our CEO, Miss Lisa Shin." When the company was about to be seized at auction, she turned the tide and saved hundreds of us from layoffs, sparing hundreds of families from losing their livelihoods. and yet she still has to face attacks from malicious people, harassment from a mistress and slander from in-laws who don't know the truth as women. Why is it that some live like the sun while others choose to sink into disgrace? Miss Shen has endured so much. As she spoke, John Tion grew emotional and even started crying into camera. In my heart, I gave her a big thumbs up. Excellent PR skills. I'll raise her salary later. Sensing the shift in public opinion, the crowd my in-laws had gathered began slipping away quietly. My in-laws too were left red-faced and shaken. I glanced left and right and saw they were already planning to slip away. I called out to my mother-in-law and Sadie, have to go on a business trip for a few days. It's really inconvenient for me to take Andrew along. Please, you to take care of him for a while. As I spoke, I shoved the wheelchair toward them. Weren't they always preaching about family bonds? Then let them deal with the burden of Andre Wand. See how long they could endure it. When I finished my work and returned from Haishi, my personal phone was flooded with texts and missed calls, all from my in-laws and Emily. Where's the nanny? Hurry and send her to my house. Come take Andrew away. I can't take care of him if you don't. I'll throw him out. Every message urged me to come get Andrew. As expected, Emily and my in-laws had ended up living together, though I didn't know what conditions they had negotiated to make her switch sides again. The next morning at work, a man dressed in black with a hat wheeled Andrew up to me, dumped him at my feet and ran off. Even their own son, once he was no longer useful, was discarded. That was exactly the style of my in-laws. I sighed helplessly and told Aunt Wang, I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you again. She nodded gently. It's fine, Lisa, as long as you still have use for him. I'll take care of him. After being stabbed in the heart by Emily, then abandoned by his own parents, Andrew must have felt utterly crushed. Thinking of that made me feel rather pleased. By mid-July, 3 days after Emily's baby was born, my in-laws and Emily showed up at my company carrying the infant and making a scene. My in-laws accused me, shouting, Why did you sell the house? That's our house promised to our son. Emily shrieked, That house belongs to us. I tossed the property certificate at them. This is marital property belonging to Andrew and me. It has nothing to do with you. Emily clutched the baby and lunged toward my in-laws to scratch them. I said calmly, Look at that baby's complexion. It doesn't look good as a mother. Instead of always coveting other people's possessions, why don't you take care of your own child first? Security forcibly escorted them out. Back in my office, I turned to Andrew and asked, Do you also think I'm heartless refusing to give your parents and child a place to live? If you had ever shown me even a shred of compassion back then, they wouldn't be in this situation today. Do you know, before I confronted you on Valentine's Day, I had already prepared all my exits. Not only was I going to divorce you, I was going to make sure you and Emily were left with nothing, completely ruined. But heaven must have thought I was too merciful, so it struck you down first, forcing you to watch them suffer and yourself be humiliated. The more I spoke, the more exhilarated I felt, and I burst into laughter. Aunt Wang came over, put her arms around me and comforted. Melissa, don't be sad anymore. Better days are here under my leadership. The company flourished, its stock price soaring. One day, while I was busy in my office, a former classmate called me in a rush. Lisa, come to our department right away. We have a special case we can't handle. Only you can. Before I could respond, she hung up with no choice. I drove straight to the Provincial Children's Hospital. I never expected the special case would turn out to be Drew and Emily's baby. That day at the company, I had caught a glimpse of the baby and casually remarked that he didn't look well. Who would have thought? He had a congenital heart defect and a very complicated one at that. When I entered the ward, my old classmate warmly grabbed my hand and introduced me. This is the top pediatric cardiac surgeon in the province, one of the best in the country. Now that she's here, you don't have to worry. I looked at Emily's pale, twisted face and smiled at my classmate. No need for introductions. We know each other. Truly, heaven's will of karma never misses. The only person who could save their child was me. Emily dropped to her knees with a thud, clutching my legs and sobbing, Lisa, Dr. Shen, please save my child. My classmate quickly stepped in, flustered. No need to beg like this. Dr. Shen is the kindest with her patients. But I only shook my head and said apologetically, I am sorry, this is a surgery I cannot perform. Emily completely lost control and lunged at me, trying to scratch my face. A nurse quickly held her back and she cursed, Liar, you're just taking revenge on me. You have no medical ethics. I slapped Emily hard across the face. Say one more word and see what happens. Just then, I felt a tug at my sleeve. I turned and saw it was Andrew. His eyes were filled with desperate pleading, and for the first time in ages, 2 words came clearly out of his. Help me. The power of fatherhood so strong that even a half-paralyzed Andrew could speak again. I looked coldly at the adulterous parents, sneered, Did you both forget my hands were already ruined by you? I can never hold a scalpel again. My old classmate rushed forward, grabbing my hands to examine them. When she saw the deep scars on my wrists, Her face filled with shock and sorrow. With trembling lips, she whispered, "Impossible, Lisa. How could something like this happen to your hands?" I patted her shoulder reassuringly, then turned back to Andrew and Emily. "After that miscarriage, I fell into postpartum depression. I begged you for help and you told me, if you can't even keep a child alive, how do you have the face to keep on living?" Don't forget, Andrew, you were busy with your startup and still holding your university post. I was working as a surgeon in the hospital while also helping you manage your new company. I was running myself ragged. We were married for years. Before I finally conceived. That day was a weekend. I had taken a nap at my in-laws' house before I even opened the bedroom door. I overheard them chatting happily in the living room. My mother-in-law said, "I can tell by the shape of her belly and the date she conceived. It's definitely a girl. We can't keep it," Emily argued, "but her stomach is already big. It's too late to get rid of it," my mother-in-law replied. "Then we'll just make her miscarry by accident. If we want a boy, it'll have to be Emily. She looks like the type to carry sons." Andrew only coughed and said, "Keep your voices down. What if she hears?" The fury rose up in my chest. I pushed open the door, and in that instant I slipped and fell hard to the floor. A rush of warmth spread between my legs and I knew immediately something was terribly wrong. I looked up for help, but my in-laws quickly grabbed Andrew and dragged him out, saying they were going shopping. Emily sat on the couch watching TV. I begged her, for the sake of all the times I was good to you, please make a call for me. She just said, "Wait until this episode is over." The floor was slick with blood, my slipper soaked. Even a fool would know what was happening. Enduring the searing pain, I crawled back to the bedroom, dragged myself to the bedside, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. It was too late. The baby couldn't be saved. The doctor told me I might never be able to have children again after the miscarriage. I sank into severe depression. Andrew sneered at me, "You couldn't even keep our baby alive. If you don't want to live, then just go die." For someone battling depression, those words were the final straw. I slit my wrists. In the end, it was only because my parents couldn't reach me by phone and rushed to my in-laws' house that I was taken to the hospital. My life was saved, but my hands were ruined. I remember lying in the hospital bed looking at my parents, who had aged overnight. Their hair turned white, and I made up my mind to fight back. I took my medication regularly and my depression slowly improved. I resigned from my position as a surgeon and took a token post at the university, convenient from Pennies, for collecting evidence of Andrew's affair in front of him. I pretended to be defeated and resigned to fate. When my in-laws accused me of being unable to bear children, I put on a look of shame. At the height of his arrogance, I quietly withdrew from the company's finance department. Taking the cash flow with me, I spent a year setting up my plan, watching as they became bolder right under my nose. The Valentine's Day gift was only a spark. The truth was, I had already gathered the evidence of his affair and of the company's tax evasion. Once he signed that divorce agreement, he would have been left with nothing. Who could have guessed he would suffer a stroke and be paralyzed? And who could have guessed that one day the bastard child he had with Emily would need my ruined hands to survive retribution? The irony was so sharp, I couldn't hold it. I burst out laughing, tears streaming down my face. Emily's face went ashen and she collapsed onto the floor. My old classmate supported me out of the ward while Aunt Wong silently pushed Andrew behind us. Once I had calmed down a little, I told Aunt Wong, "Just stay here at the hospital with Andrew. Let him spend more time with his son." Since my hospital had collaborative projects with me, I happened to pass by the ward one day and on a whim went in to check. Before I even reached the door, I could already hear Emily's furious screams echoing down the corridor. "Get out, you useless cripple. What good are you? You're just here to watch our child die. Why don't you go die yourself?" Through the window, I saw Emily slap Andrew across the face while he sat helplessly in his wheelchair. Aunt Wong came toward me with a kettle of hot water, pulled me aside, and said softly, "The baby is getting weaker every day. Emily has no money left to pay for treatment. Your in-laws came once empty-handed, barely sat down before they rushed off again, claiming they'd raise money after that. Emily hasn't been able to reach them. That's just how they are. Once the child became a burden, they saw no value left in her and quickly ran." A piercing alarm suddenly blared from the monitor inside the room. Emily's shrill voice followed my son. My baby. Doctors and nurses rushed in. Her cries turned into heart-wrenching wails. Aunt Long and I stepped inside ready to take Andrew away. Emily ran over and grabbed onto Andrew's wheelchair screaming, "It's all your fault. If you were already useless, why did you keep taking your medication? You made me pregnant. This is all your fault. You killed my child. You owe me his life." He shoveled and trembling. Andrew suddenly forced himself upright out of the wheelchair. A vein bulged at his temple. His face twisted in rage and he grabbed Emily by the collar with surprising strength. His throat rasped out broken words. I motioned to Aunt Wong to step aside and let the two of them tear each other apart, but Andrew's illness had already drained him by the time the hospital security rushed in and separated them. He had collapsed back into the wheelchair unconscious, while Emily Hysterical, slapped him again and again. A doctor came to me and asked how they should proceed with resuscitation. Andrew rasped faintly, "Forget it, don't waste the country's resources, just put me in a regular ward and prepare the organ donation papers." Andrew clung to life in the general ward for 3 days. On the third, Aunt Wong called me in a panic. "Miss Shin, Andrew suddenly regained consciousness. He keeps shouting for you." I thought perhaps he had some hidden assets I didn't know about, so I went to the hospital to ask. The moment I walked in, tears streamed down his face. I asked bluntly if he had any property tucked away, but the bastard only whispered 3 "I am sorry" before his head lolled to the side. He was gone after Andrew's death. I held a press conference. Ito announced that all of our joint assets would be used to establish a foundation for children with congenital heart disease. I had devoted the first half of my life to this field. Even though my hands were ruined, I still wanted to do something meaningful. 2 weeks later, Andrew's parents came to see me. I sat tapping the desk, looking down at them from above. His mother was the first to speak, her tone ingratiating. "Lisa, we helped you get rid of that slut, Emily. We forced her back to her hometown and made her parents marry her off to some old bachelor just to get a dowry for her brother. Now she's living a miserable life. That old man beats her every day." She bowed slightly, her voice full of flattery. "But we're old now. We have no house, no money, and we need support." I let out a dry laugh. "The law doesn't require me to support my in-laws. If you want financial support, go ask your son." Andrew's father's face flushed red as he stood up angry. "Are you cursing us to die?" I took out a shoebox and placed it in his hands. "Andrew's ashes are inside. Hold them carefully from now on. Your family of 3 is reunited. I have nothing more to do with you." Then I called for security to escort them out and ordered that they never be allowed inside again. After Andrew's death, I kept Aunt Wong by my side. My work was too busy and she took meticulous care of my daily life. One day, when she returned from visiting her aunt in Aslam on the edge of the city, she told me what she had seen. "I ran into your in-laws. They were bent over rummaging through garbage bins. They look at least 10 years older." I asked my aunt and she said they've been renting Otani storage garage for yuan a month, living there for years now. They had no running water, no electricity, and survived by picking through trash. I only smiled and said nothing. If Andrew hadn't cheated, if they hadn't plotted against me back then, they could have had a peaceful and secure old age. People can't be too greedy. Those who cross the bottom line will only face the consequences. Extra chapter. Andrew's perspective. When Lisa Chen brought up divorce that day, I wasn't surprised. I knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. My affair with Emily must have already been exposed. So, on Valentine's Day, when I signed the divorce agreement, I even felt a sense of relief. As long as we went to the Civil Bureau to finalize the paperwork, I could be free of that strong, domineering woman forever. But what I never expected was that the very night I went too far with Emily, forgetting to take my medication, I would suffer a stroke and end up paralyzed. When Emily insisted at the hospital that I should be treated with the best medicine, I actually thought I hadn't loved the wrong person. At the very next day, Lisa came to process my discharge and right in front of reporters exposed my affair with Emily. She hated me, but she wouldn't let me die. She pushed me to watch Emily being humiliated, pushed me to attend events where I was paraded under the spotlight, my crippled, pathetic state on display so she could leverage it for sympathy and resources. In those moments, I hated Lisa even more and longed all the more for the gentle Emily. But that day in the office, when I heard Emily urging Lisa to cut off my medication, saying she had been blind to ever be with me, felt like I was going insane. Later, when Lisa dumped me at my parents' house for a few days, I was tormented and humiliated by my own parents and Emily, one after another. Only then did I realize the only person in this world who had ever truly cared for me was Lisa, and I had thrown her love away with my own hands. My body was shackled by paralysis, but my mind suffered endlessly. That day at the hospital, when Emily begged Lisa to save her child, I also pleaded with Lisa. Maybe she thought it was because I still loved Emily, but it wasn't. I looked at Emily's frantic face and was reminded of Lisa's face the day she miscarried Lisa, and I had buried our own child with our selfishness. And now the child I had with Emily also died because of me's death approached. I knew my life was steeped in sin. It was too late for redemption. The words "I'm sorry" left my lips, but far too late. The end.